But it was so nice on these trips, too, because you'd always stop on the side of the road. Baba would always have tiffin in the back of his car. You'd stop at these wonderful old British Raj roadside inns, and you'd have these fabulous little teas and some sweets to eat. And if it wasn't a nice little roadside inn, then it'd be the side of the road, and he'd sit there and he'd talk, and you'd pod namaskar, and it definitely was encouraging to continue the Gopi Brigade, that's for sure.
Behind the cars, you remember when other cars would come by and he'd go hide behind his
Oh,
car?
yes,
And
it
then
was
he'd
so
laugh
sweet.
at us. Laughing.
And then when we offered him nuts and things like that on the road, and he took them and he bit half a nut and he gave it back.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then we divided that nut so everybody had a little piece.
I can remember one time it was so hot and Baba's lips were so chapped because it was so hot, and we were driving in the car for like hours, and then we stopped on the side and he sent someone out for fruit or something for everybody because it was so dreadfully hot, and it was like seeing Baba that he actually had a human form, that his lips were actually chapped, that it was amazing.
Yeah.
But then at Anantapur, I can remember one time we went there, and it was towards the end, and he let us stay overnight, and everybody got up. I was the last person to get up, and Baba was none too pleased that we were there, but he let us sleep over. I get up, and there's no one in the room, and the room is a complete mess, and I said, oh, I better get my sari on fast. Swami's going to be coming in here. And I'm saying this whole time, oh, if I only had a chance to talk to you. Just sit down and talk to you. Just nothing, just see what's going on. Just talk, just nice talk. So, and meanwhile, I start running around and cleaning things up. Oh, he's going to be in here in a minute. I'm wrapping my sari and folding saris. And who comes breezing through the door by himself? He just comes. It was like he just appeared in the door. He come walking in, walked right up to me and goes, yes? Yes? And I'm there, just cleaning up, just straightening up, Swami, just straightening up. And he just like turned around and walked out of the room, and I'm like, oh, there was my chance. And I realized I never had anything to say anyway. I begged for these chances, and I would never have a word to say anyway.
Do you think it was ever anything in what Swami said so much as just the way he... How he felt?
I was so intimidating. Yes? Yes? What is so important? It was,
How many times have you been in an interview and you forgot you had a problem?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, always,
that just
ever.
goes
Yeah.
away.
It never, even whenever Swami would talk to me, it would just be, I could never remember what I wanted to ask him. So I'd always say the stupidest things that he could make jokes about forever. And it was just like...
Talk about the dinner we made for Swami, the dinner you made for Swami. That was such a wonderful experience, and
The 20 times she went to City Market in the bus to get the goods.
Swami had taken us to the Joy Ice Cream Factory in the morning.
yes.
Then in the evening there was a Bengal ceremony that was performed for a lady who was in her ninth month of pregnancy. And he had fed us dinner and everything. And I don't know if it was India, most likely it was India.
Can we cook for you?
We have to go back. We have to reciprocate. Swami's given us so much. We should give something to Swami. And it was determined that we would invite Swami to dinner. But in fact, we didn't know if he was coming to lunch or dinner. So we had to be prepared. So people were up from 5 o'clock, from what, 4?
Well, we didn't know if he was
morning?
coming because he said just yes, yes, but there was 2 Indian ladies, Geeta and Leela, who were really wonderful friends of ours then, and Bob, and they were going to help me. But as Michelle said, I was the only one who could ever do City Market because we had no money. We had to go to City Market, and there was nothing in Katgodi.
And we also wanted good quality things. You wanted the best
we
quality.
got ghee, we got everything. I mean, where the money came from this, we really must have fed 30 or 40 people.
Swami invited at least 30 people. And we had all of the foreigners there as well, and we invited a few people to come.
And nobody knew it. Pouring rain. We had no idea. I did these 3 trips to Bangla.
We had
Geeta and Leela helped
27
me.
dishes.
And we only had 2 kerosene
No,
stoves.
27 different types of food. And they were all in buckets. And we set the tables. It was this big open, school room with a metal roof. And we set the table, and we had elaborate plans.
We had the 20 7 dishes.
27 different dishes. The scene was set from the early morning, running back and forth to City Market, cooking in
That little teeny
a little
room.
tiny, what was it, 6x6 room, or not
Yeah.
quite even as big as that, with a dirt floor on 3 kerosene stoves, produced 27 different dishes and served probably about 40 people for this dinner. We set places on the floor, and we didn't know when he was coming, but lunchtime passed and he hadn't come yet. So we felt safe. But then suddenly we had garlands laid, and someone was supposed to garland him, one of the gents, but Swami suddenly walked in, and I was just
This was
placing
dinner
that
already.
garland for a gent to give, and Swami said, "Do," and he put his head down. It's the first time I ever touched his hair. And I put that garland, and it was heaven. I put the garland over his head, and then he said, then he brought his people in, and he arranged where everybody would sit. And Swami always arranged where everybody would sit, and he made sure everybody would sit down. And then he told us ladies who were standing there to pick up the buckets and start to serve. And Swami picked up a bucket and served. Swami
served,
picked up a
and
bucket and
I
served.
was so tired because I had made all the trips to City Market that I literally fell, sitting up cross-legged, fell asleep. And at dinner.
At the dinner, and Swami looked over her and he said, "Papam, cook is tired." And I personally never saw a more sweet expression on Swami's face. He was so proud of you,
Yeah.
and the amount of love that you gave out in serving and in helping all of us who didn't know how to do anything
I was
to
capable.
survive and cook and eat and where to go to the bathroom and everything. You were definitely.
Definitely helped. But Swami was so
Where did
tired.
Swami sit, though?
Swami, we had a
Swami sat
dais.
there,
We had a dais, and Swami sat at that table alone. And who did you serve, Swami?
We
I
all
served-
did.
Everybody
We all
got to serve.
did.
There was 27 dishes. It would have taken forever. Gita and Leela. This was, I just have to say how Swami and Leela, I mean, the very next day he went to Puttapati or Anantapur, and he told everybody what a great dinner it was and how wonderful cook I was. I mean,
We had salad and mashed potatoes.
No, we did.
Was it Indian
It was
food?
all Indian food. It was an incredible Indian meal from beginning to end. It was just, Pat Gita and Leela helped me spice it. They were just perfect, and they really cooked a lot with us and helped everything. But we really primarily made it. I mean, they really
And it
helped.
poured rain.
And it poured rain, and so
And
it came in.
The sound on the roof was incredible. And Swami sat after the dinner and spoke for a long, long time to us.
Yeah.
And through the years, he gave so many beautiful spiritual discourses. I think the one thing about being in the Gopi Brigade and being in that era was the spiritual, constantly the spiritual talk. I am always with you. I am above you, around you, below you. I am your mother. I am your father. This is your home. And we totally believed him.
We totally, that was one of my favorite
even know he
stories.
was God.
Totally believed him. And there was times he used to walk. We hung our laundry. He gave us rooms to live at the back of his house, and we hung our laundry on a rope that stretched across the whole
know,
back
I
of his
can't believe
house. And Swami used to come out to darshan and come through the
To
back way,
laundry.
and he had to part the laundry to get through. And we were so believing he was our mother. We were felt so close, and he was our mother and father, that they told us to move our laundry, and we just didn't.
No, we were so innocent.
He gave us a space. He allowed us that space to be that close to him, to feel so warm with him and so homey that he was our mother. He tiptoed across the water that we had thrown out of this cooking room and created a lake in front of this little room and put stones. And he tiptoed across those stones to come into the room. And India was making chapatis. And Swami picked up a chapati, and Swami braided it in half, and he blew into it. And he says, "Now you put inside sweets or potatoes." And then he crumpled it back up and threw it back into the dough. And when he left the room, of course, we were all like in a state of
Trying
trance.
to eat that road dog.
All eating a little piece of that roti. Another time, Bruce Bradbury noticed that we had cooked some chapatis and we weren't too good at it yet, and so it was uneven, and Bruce noticed that it was the shape of Swami's hair. So he drew a face on the chapati, and it looked like Swami. So we did about 4 chapatis that looked like Swami, and then we had permission to go into his dining room, and we brought those chapatis into his dining room, and Swami said, and we walked into his dining room, and we showed Swami the chapatis, and he says, "Oh, it's omnipresent." Chapatis and potatoes everywhere.
walk into a dining
wait,
room.
here's the
Well,
Michelle.
talk about the time the milk.
Yeah,
You tell that.
Our
Okay.
milk story. Because we used to always be in interviews, and because we were always cooking our own food and we didn't have any fresh milk, Swami would always say he'd give us milk. No problem. He'd give us some milk. And so and then one day he was going to give us some milk. He'd say, oh, Rajmata drank it, and this one and that one. So Michelle and I, we said, we were out, I can't remember, it was after darshan, and we were going to...
We're going to go inside and ask Swami what happened to the milk.
Yeah, because we were going to cook something, and India needed the milk. So we're in the garden, we just march right inside, and we go, Swami,
Swami, the milk didn't come.
where's the milk, Swami? Where's the milk? We're all uppity about it. And then he goes, oh, the milk.
What can I do?
Oh,
Roger Reddy drank it.
Roger Reddy drank it all.
What's a mother to do? It was really
Then he took us to his cupboard. He
Uh-huh.
opened his cupboard wide. He filled our arms with tins, with cans, with food of all descriptions and kind. And I like to say when I tell the story that like that he fills our hearts.
Yeah.
He may not give you what you think you're going to get, but he's going to fill you.
Right. But I think first he gave us Pada Namaskar before he filled us up.
Oh, that's nice.
Or maybe he filled us up so we wouldn't take it. I can't remember.
He was giving.
For some reason or other, I was the only...
Wait a second. Here comes Kathy Bear.
Yeah.
Come on, Kathy.
Come on, Kathy, come on.
One of the
Pull that chair
Gopis. Pull this chair over.
I was one of the only foreigners that knew how to do things, that wasn't afraid to be in India, because I had already lived there for so long, and I already knew Indian cooking, and I knew how to get around the bazaars. So I kind of had this unofficial position of taking care of everybody. I mean, down to finding the dobis for them. People were fairly helpless when they got there. I mean, I never understood quite why, but Swami let me build up this big position of taking care of everyone, being the cosmic mother in a way. And finally, it got to be so many foreigners there that I had to cook. I couldn't go to darshan. I mean, it was like and I was getting really crazy. And I was staying in this room making chapatis, getting angrier and angrier. Like, why am I doing this? I mean, they all can walk to the bazaar. And then I was just getting crazy. And I didn't go to darshan. I mean, this was like the bottom line. I mean, why are you at Baba's if you're not going to darshan? So I was just so upset. I'm getting angry at everyone, and I'm putting this anger into the food. It's like, I hate those people. Why aren't they here cooking? They're all at darshan. Baba's talking to them. And I'm just thinking like this, and it was like Gail's Baba left the darshan line, came around in front of the school, came to my little 6x6 room, and he said, don't put anger into the food. And he I came all around. He said, don't put anger into the food. Better not to cook, he said. And he came around, and then no, of course I didn't get it right away. I'm much too stupid. But I mean, then everybody came. All these people came running from the darshan line, because this was the other thing we did terrible. I mean, even though in those days we were told not to do this, we couldn't resist. Baba would leave the darshan, and like he used to say, like a herd of elephants, get up and run to meet him somewhere, wherever it was. So all the other foreigners came to my one private darshan, running in, and Swami's just saying, don't cook with anger, don't cook with anger. And they all come up, everyone, I mean, especially Vijay and Michelle, because they were my sisters that I could really get mad at. And they all come and hoard my little space. So then they give us all a lecture about cooking with love, and never to cook with anger, and to do prayers on the food. So everything Baba did, but it was so strange, because there I was just cursing everyone, and he said,
Always
don't
a spiritual
cook
message
with
and
anger.
all the things. Do you remember the time Marcia and I took Pad Namaskar together? And it was just
Was that on the...
that was in the college room. It was
Oh,
in the
before we
college
went, we were
room.
going to leave on Krishna's birthday. Haidima was there. She just after when he said, Krishna, no birth, no death. Remember?
That was in the Mandir.
Yeah, that was in the Monday.
You asked if you could stay for Krishna's birthday, and what did he say?
He says, Krishna?
No birth, no death.
No birth, no death.
And then we were all in there. Then that was in the Mandir.
And Heidi would speak to Swami, and one person would touch Pad Namaskar, and somebody else would get up and talk to Swami, and another person would touch Namaskar. And it was really heaven. He kept telling me, you come back with your son. I said, wisdom son, Swami, wisdom son. He says, physical son, you'll see. And I said, no, Swami, please don't say that, Swami.
Well, I can't remember on one of our trips, he says, take Pad Namaskar. And I can't remember who was doing it. He said, Pad Namaskar. Pad Namaskar, not lunch, Pad Namaskar.
Oh, it's
Crossing his feet.
Oh, yeah, not lunch. I love that.
You know, Heidi, there's a famous story that Dr. Hisloff told about being in the car going from Whitefield, and it was with your parents and you and him, and you passed another car, and it was like,
Yeah,
should have
well-
been, why don't you tell that story?
Yeah, well, it was after darshan at Swami's house. We're going back to Bangalore in the evening, and you know how cab drivers there drive like, you know, insanely. So we're coming up behind a truck, I think it was, and the cab pulls out to pass it, and there's another car right there. And my mother, who was sitting on the outside, I guess I was in the middle between my mother and father, said that she saw big mounds of dirt at the side of the road, so there was no way our taxi could pull off the road, and it was just like we were going to be like this in the next second, and before we knew it, that car was behind us going on down the road, and it was as though either we had been dematerialized and set on the other side, or that car had been. It was so weird, like you didn't believe what had happened had happened. Anyway, my father was all, oh, I've got to find somebody so I can talk to the taxi cab driver and find out from him what happened. You know? Anyway, the next morning we're out at Baba's house, and Hisloff gets up first thing, you know, and says, Swami, I want to thank you for last night. And then before he could say anything else, Swami said, oh, yes, you know, and explained everything that had happened, you know, how the cars had gone, and said, Swami's protection, and he says, you were all too shocked to call on Swami.
Wow.
No one asked him. That was so interesting.
Yeah.